Real estate is, I mean, it's at an absolute premium right now. And like the average remote worker is practically burning out at their kitchen table.
Oh, yeah, completely burning out.
Right. Yet almost all of us are sitting on um, maybe 100 square feet of ignored, highly
Yeah.
valuable real estate right in our own backyards.
And we don't even see it.
No, we don't. You probably know it as that place where the broken rakes, the rusty lawnmower, and, the deflated holiday inflatables go to die. It's basically the architectural equivalent of the kitchen junk drawer.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
But what if that overgrown wooden box was actually, well, what if it was the Swiss Army knife of your property?
It's just a massive missed opportunity for most homeowners. I mean, we are desperately trying to carve out functional space inside our homes, right?
For working, exercising, whatever.
Exactly, for creating, living, and we are completely ignoring the potential, just, 50 feet out the back door. The traditional concept of the American shed is undergoing this radical evolution, and it's entirely out of necessity.
Because we just don't have the room inside anymore.
Right. It has to become a functional extension of the living space because our interior footprints they can't keep up with how our daily lives have shifted over the last few years.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. By the time we wrap up today, we want you, the listener, to look at that patch of grass by the fence in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
You're not going to see a place to hide clutter anymore. You're going to see a canvas for a major lifestyle upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually unlock that Swiss Army knife, you have to know which tool you need before you start pulling things out.
Which leads us to the absolute biggest hurdle people face.
Right, the core mistake. Let's get into that.
The foundational mistake. It happens almost every single time someone decides, they want to put a structure in their yard. They start by picking a size or like a visual design completely untethered from how they actually intend to use the space.
Okay, let's unpack this because I genuinely need to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't a shed just, 4 walls, a roof, and a door? Why are we overcomplicating a wooden box?
It sounds simple, but
I mean, if I have a 10 by 10 patch of flat dirt in my yard, shouldn't I just buy a standard 10 by 10 shed and then, figure out the interior later? To me, picking the size first seems like the most logical starting point.
see, it feels logical, but from an architectural and structural standpoint, it is a complete disaster.
Really, a disaster.
Yes. If you build the box first and try to cram a purpose into it later, you are going to spend twice as much money retrofitting it, or honestly, you're just going to end up hating the space.
Okay, so it sounds kind of like walking into a store and buying a pair of shoes just because they're a size 9 without knowing if you are running a marathon tomorrow or attending a black tie gala.
Oh, that is exactly it.
Because a size 9 running shoe
Yeah.
is completely useless at a gala. Just like a 10 by 10 box built for a lawnmower is going to be incredibly uncomfortable if you try to sit in it for 8 hours a day and answer emails.
That is the perfect way to look at it. The underlying mechanics of the building have to change based entirely on the activity happening inside. I mean, think about the floor loads.
Okay, yeah.
If you are building a storage shed for a heavy riding mower, your primary concern is structural reinforcement on the floor joists. And, having double doors wide enough to actually drive the thing through.
Right, you need access.
You don't care about a vapor barrier. You might not even want windows because they reduce your wall space for hanging shovels and weed whackers.
But if I take that exact same 10 by 10 footprint and decide, actually I want to use it as a remote office, the requirements just flip completely.
Entirely. Suddenly, you need a vapor barrier, and an insulated subfloor or radiant cold from the ground is going to freeze your feet all winter.
Oh, wow, I didn't even think about the floor being cold.
Yeah, and you need serious electrical capacity, not just like running a single extension cord across the lawn, but actual dedicated circuits for computers and climate control.
Right.
You need thermal breaks in the walls, acoustic insulation so you don't hear the neighbor's leaf blower while you're on a conference call.
The dreaded leaf blower.
Always during the most important meetings, right? And proper solar orientation for natural light. The structure has to serve the lifestyle. Form follows function.
So if buying the box first is a mistake, what is square one? How do I actually figure out the architectural requirements if I don't know the first thing about building?
You start by interrogating your own lifestyle. There are 5 highly specific questions you have to answer before you ever even look at a piece of lumber.
Okay, lay them on me.
First, what primary problem am I trying to solve?
Makes sense.
Second, what is the actual frequency of use? Like, will I be in there daily or once a month?
Right, the wear and tear factor.
Third, what are the raw utility needs regarding power and internet? Fourth, how does natural light factor into the primary activity?
Got it.
And fifth, which is critical for return on investment, how might these needs evolve over the next 5 years?
See, that fifth one is fascinating because it forces you to think about the life cycle of your property, not just, a quick weekend project. We will definitely dig into future-proofing later.
Definitely.
But let's stick with that very first question. What problem are you trying to solve? Because once you shift from asking what size to what purpose, the mechanical possibilities get really interesting.
They really do.
Let's start with the classic storage shed, but look at how it actually operates when it's designed with intention.
Well, even basic storage requires mechanical forethought. I mean, the problem you are usually solving here is an overcrowded garage, right?
Yeah, you just want to be able to park your car indoors again.
Exactly. So a purpose-built storage shed isn't just a cavern where you throw boxes. It incorporates overhead lofting trusses to utilize vertical space for things like holiday decorations.
Oh, that makes sense. Get the light, bulky stuff up high.
Right. And it uses reinforced walls designed specifically to bear the sheer weight of hanging heavy tools on pegboards, rather than just using standard drywall framing, which would just rip right out.
But let's say your problem has nothing to do with garden hoses. Let's say your problem is that you're an avid woodworker, or you rebuild motorcycle engines, and your partner is losing your mind because the driveway is constantly covered in sawdust or grease.
A very common domestic dispute.
Right. Enter the dedicated backyard workshop.
Now, this is where we see a huge leap in structural requirements. A workshop is a high-demand environment. You are dealing with heavy machinery, which means you need to pour a concrete slab foundation rather than using, like, a wooden skid base.
Oh, just to handle the vibration, right?
Yeah.
Of a lathe or a table saw.
Exactly. A wooden floor will just bounce and throw off all your precision cuts.
Plus the electrical demands. You can't just run a single 15-amp wire from the house for that kind of stuff.
Not a chance. If you flick on a shop vacuum and a heavy-duty saw at the exact same time on a standard circuit, you are tripping the breaker immediately. So you have to trench a dedicated subpanel out to the structure.
Right. Actual infrastructure.
And then there is the air quality. You have to design the space for negative air pressure and dust collection systems so you aren't inhaling microparticles all day. The ventilation mechanics are completely different from a standard storage unit.
You know what fascinates me most about the workshop concept isn't even the wiring or the concrete, it's the psychology behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the friction involved in hobbies. Like, if you have a passion, say you want to get into pottery or electronics repair or painting, but the setup takes 20 minutes on a kitchen table, and then the cleanup takes 20 minutes, and you only have 45 minutes of free time to begin with.
You just don't do it.
Exactly, you don't do it. The activation energy required is simply too high.
That is a brilliant point. The friction completely kills the creative impulse.
But with a dedicated physical space, you eliminate that friction. You don't have to pack the project away. You leave the canvas exactly how it was, you leave the circuit board half soldered, you turn off the light, and you lock the door.
It's frozen in time.
Right. Tomorrow, you just step back in and pick up instantly. The structure itself is removing the psychological barriers to your own creativity.
Which perfectly transitions into the next major evolution we're seeing, the home office. Because if a workshop removes the friction to start creating, a backyard office creates the necessary friction to stop working.
Yes.
Yeah.
The backyard commute. I love this concept.
It's huge right now.
Because remote work sounded great in theory, but working from your kitchen island or some cramped spare bedroom eventually completely blurs the boundaries between your personal life and your professional life.
You're just living at work.
Exactly. You were always at home and you were always at work.
And that takes a measurable cognitive toll on a person. Psychologists actually refer to this as boundary theory. We rely on physical transitions to cue our brains to switch roles.
Like getting in the car and driving.
Right, but when you walk out your back door, step across the grass, and unlock a separate building, you are creating a physical threshold. Even if it is only a 50-foot walk, you are signaling to your brain that you are entering a space meant strictly for focus.
And works in reverse, too. When you shut down your laptop, lock that door, and walk back to the house, you are leaving work behind. You aren't staring at your work computer while you're eating dinner.
There is also the issue of cognitive load regarding distractions. I mean, if you are trying to analyze a complex spreadsheet at the dining table, but you can see a basket of unfolded laundry in your peripheral vision.
Which is me every day.
Right. A portion of your brain's processing power is actively thinking about that laundry. You are splitting your focus. A
Yeah.
dedicated office strips away all those domestic triggers.
But physically building that environment requires serious planning. A home office isn't just a shed with a desk inside. We touched on insulation earlier, but you also have to manage climate control year-round.
Right, usually through something like a ductless mini split system, which provides both heating and cooling pretty efficiently in a small footprint. And you really have to factor in solar gain.
Solar gain.
Yeah, so if you put massive, beautiful windows on the south-facing wall of a small, well-insulated structure, you have essentially built a solar oven.
Oh, man. So
Yeah.
you're just baking yourself.
Literally, without proper roof eaves or ventilation to mitigate that heat, you will be sweating through your video calls by noon every single day in the summer.
Which brings up the wellness studio concept. Because the same architectural and psychological principles apply there. People are realizing that sacrificing a spare bedroom for a treadmill just isn't ideal.
It's noisy, it smells.
Yeah, it's terrible. So they build a sanctuary. But again, the mechanics change.
Mm.
If you are dropping heavy weights, you need shock-absorbing rubberized subflooring.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are doing yoga, you might want massive skylights and acoustic paneling to deaden the echo and block out street noise.
Or consider a dedicated space for children. A backyard playhouse sounds simple, but if you approach it strategically, it gives kids a safe, bounded area to be loud and messy, chalkboard walls, art stations, without taking over the main living room.
Oh, that's the dream.
And the structural demands there are heavily focused on safety, shatterproof windows, non-toxic materials, and rounded framing edges.
Okay, so let's say you've done the work. You asked the 5 questions. You closed your eyes and envisioned this incredible sanctuary. You know exactly what problem you want to solve, whether it's a soundproof office, a vibration-dampened wood shop, or a sunlit yoga studio.
You have the vision.
Right. But how do you actually cross the chasm from an abstract daydream to real physical construction? Because if I'm being completely honest here, I don't know what a birdsmith joint is.
Most people don't.
I don't understand roof pitches, and the thought of calculating snow loads gives me extreme anxiety.
And that right there is the exact threshold where 90% of these projects die. Analysis paralysis. People realize they don't know how to calculate a bill of materials, they guess wrong at the lumberyard, they get frustrated, and they quit.
Yeah, I would just give up.
The key to bridging that gap is removing the guesswork entirely through comprehensive, engineered plans.
Which brings us to a specific resource we researched for this deep dive.
Right.
A database called Ryan's Woodshed Plans. Now, this collection apparently contains over 12,000 different construction plans.
It's massive.
And I have to throw a flag on the play here.
Okay, why?
If I am already feeling completely overwhelmed by the logistics of building one single structure, doesn't throwing 12,000 blueprints at me just make the analysis paralysis infinitely worse? I mean, how is a database that massive actually helpful to a beginner?
It's a very fair critique. If it were just a catalog you had to flip through page by page, it would be absolutely paralyzing. But the utility of a database this large isn't in browsing, it's in filtering.
Explain that.
Think back to the 5 questions we discussed. You've already done the strategic work. You know you need, say, a 10 by 12 space on a concrete slab with vaulted ceilings for a golf simulator and heavy-duty electrical.
Very specific.
Exactly. If you only had 20 plans to choose from, you would have to compromise, or you would have to try and hack a basic garden shed designed to fit your needs, which is where structural failures happen.
Because you'd be guessing on how to modify the roof trusses to get the height you need.
Exactly. But with a database of 12,000 engineered plans, you just apply your criteria like search filters. You aren't looking at 12,000 plans. You are filtering down to the 3 specific blueprints that exactly match your mechanical requirements.
Okay, I see.
The volume ensures precision. It means there is already a proven, mathematically sound blueprint for the exact obscure combination of features you want.
So it acts as a matching system, not a catalog.
Precisely. And more importantly, a professional plan provides a precise bill of materials. This is where beginners just bleed money.
Oh, I bet buying the wrong stuff.
Yeah. If you don't have an exact list of every 2x4, every box of screws, and every sheet of plywood, you end up making 5 trips to the hardware store in one day, or you overpurchase by 20% and waste your budget on scrap.
But with the list, you just take it, hand it to the desk at the lumberyard, and they load it onto a truck.
Yes, done. And modern plans often include 3D CAD models, computer-aided design. For someone who struggles to visualize a 2D blueprint, This is invaluable.
Which is me, definitely.
It allows you to virtually step inside the structure before you buy any lumber. You can verify spatial relationships. You can literally see, okay, if I put my desk on this wall, will the door hit my chair when it swings open? Where does the afternoon sun hit the monitor?
That spatial verification is huge. It lets you focus on the micro details that actually dictate everyday comfort.
Hmm.
Because it's those small, seemingly insignificant details that make or break a space. For example, understanding how cross-ventilation works. If you are building a storage shed and you don't include proper soffit and ridge vents, you aren't just making it hot inside, you are actively trapping humidity.
Which leads directly to mildew, wood rot, and ruined equipment. Proper airflow mechanics are non-negotiable, even in a basic structure.
Or like exterior lighting. If you don't plan for exterior lighting on the blueprint, you're going to be stumbling through a dark, icy backyard in January trying to get to your office.
Not fun.
No, it's about designing for reality, not just aesthetics. Which brings us all the way back to that crucial fifth question we talked about. How will your needs evolve over the next 5 years? We briefly mentioned future-proofing, but how does that actually manifest in the construction phase?
Well, it's about building adaptability right into the initial framing. Let's go back to the children's playhouse example. Right now, it's a whimsical space with a chalkboard wall.
Cute.
But kids grow up fast. If you frame that structure with standard 16-inch on-center studs and perhaps run empty PVC conduit through the walls before you close them up with drywall, you have built-in massive adaptability.
Oh, that's incredibly smart. Running the conduit while the walls are open costs almost nothing.
Exactly. It's just cheap plastic pipe. You don't even have to pull the electrical wire yet. But 5 years later, when your teenager needs a quiet study space, you can easily pull wire through that conduit to add outlets and internet.
And
10 years after that, when they move out, you swap the furniture, upgrade the flooring, and suddenly you have a high-end remote office or yoga studio. Because the foundational bones were engineered correctly, the space evolves seamlessly with your family's life cycle.
So you aren't just building a shed, you are building a highly adaptable asset that increases the functional square footage of your property for decades.
That is the ultimate takeaway. The structural shell is just a vessel. The value comes from the foresight you put into it before the first nail is even driven.
So as we pull all these threads together, the core insight here is a total paradigm shift. The era of the backyard being a graveyard for rusted tools is completely over.
Long gone.
Your property holds untapped potential, but accessing it requires treating an outdoor structure with the exact same architectural respect and psychological intent as you would, say, a master bedroom addition.
Exactly.
The entire intimidating process of construction becomes manageable, even exciting, the moment you stop asking, what size shed should I buy? And start asking, what specific mechanical and mental space do I need to improve my daily life?
When you clearly define the purpose, the engineering, the blueprints, and the execution, they all just follow naturally. The friction vanishes.
And for you listening right now, these principles of intention and purpose don't just apply to pouring concrete in your backyard.
Yeah.
They apply to how you audit your current living space today. Are you letting a spare room, a basement corner, or a garage default to a junk drawer mentality simply because you haven't clearly defined its purpose?
It is a really powerful lens for evaluating the friction in your everyday environment.
It really is. And we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We spent a lot of time dissecting the psychology of the backyard commute. How creating just 50 feet of physical distance and a dedicated threshold can completely reset your cognitive load, improve your focus, and establish real boundaries between your work and your personal life.
The profound impact of architectural boundaries on human behavior. It's fascinating.
Right. So if simple physical boundaries have that much power over our mental clarity, what other invisible boundaries in your current environment are actively blurring your focus right now? Where are the zones in your life where relaxation and productivity are bleeding into one another? And how could you physically redesign those spaces today to get your peace of mind back?
It's an exercise in taking control of your environment rather than letting it control you.
Next time you walk past a patch of empty grass or open that junk drawer in your kitchen, ask yourself what it could become if you applied a little intention. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.